I appreciate the author. Incidentally, I didn't know the author that much. Even I didn't know him until this issue of this book came up. So some people will think that probably, please be seated. And your wife that is here, the only person that can manage you. So we have to thank her for managing you. So when this book matter came, first when he sent the letter to us in the office, we said, okay, because someone just like Ruben Abati classified his review. I'm somehow a lucky person because I'm the most documented former president in Nigeria. When I was in office, Ruben Abati and Oronto Douglas, late Oronto Douglas, my advisor on documentation, they documented everything we did. And if I compare, yes, I looked at even the former presidents. If there's a public library about former president, if you go to my section, you'll be tired because I'm the most documented former, even when I was in the office. And even after leaving office, this is just one book. There are people who have written my unauthorized biographies. Even this morning, I saw some people, they want one copy on my table. A number of young people have written a lot about me. So the author, being a journalist, was able to drag me down here. You are very clever. Because most others who wrote books about me couldn't drag me to the public presentation. And even this one, I was not to come. But when the former Inspector General of Police, Dr. Solomon Aransi, came to my office with a formidable senior Nigerians to discuss this book, I said, well, you have paid your dues. Let us come. So we have to thank Aransi and his team for bringing us here. And I believe from the review given by Ruben, we are not disappointed that it will give us a bit of information. Just like Ruben said, Ruben is an erudite scholar, a journalist. I'm not one. But I know that people write books about leaders. I happen to be lucky to be one, and more books will be written. But somehow, when you read some of these books, it's always very difficult for you to even agree with the authors in some respect. But the authors have their own freedom. So you allow them to present you the way they see. You may not completely agree with all the things they raise about you. And it's so difficult to assess a leader. I must say that it's difficult to assess a leader. And it's because leaders handle issues based on the circumstances of the day. If we take, for example, in Nigeria now, if you take people who are still alive, I don't want to talk about the late people and people you know. Gowon as a leader, if you assess Gowon, it was a different ball game because it was a different environment. It was civil war. And at the end of the war, so it met a different environment. Even if you take somebody like Obasanjo, when he came in and took over from late Murtala and led us for about 3 years plus, it was a different environment than when he came in 1999 as elected president. It's like somebody who was to go and clear a farm for cultivation. Of course, the challenges he faced with what President Buhari is facing now are quite different. So it's always difficult to really assess a leader. So I commend the authors who try to present us. I always say that the best way to assess a leader is to look at the philosophy behind the leadership. Yes, for elected people, political parties are supposed to have different ideologies in terms of leader to the left or leader to the right or so. But even within that ideological persuasion, leaders must have their vision, the way they think they will grow society. I always don't think about leadership at the level of a president and a governor based on basic infrastructure that we have been able to do. Yes, we must commend a governor or a president that is working because people need this infrastructure. Anybody who has money and is not a big thief will definitely provide this for the people. But beside that, what do you live? How do you assess a leader? What is his thinking? How will he move people from one level to the other? His vision for the leadership. And I always say that probably the best materials that will talk about those of us who have the opportunity of being former presidents are the thesis that are written by students that some of them are just locked up in the university departments, library, especially those in the philosophy departments that will be writing about the philosophy behind somebody's leadership. What is the driving force? And probably people will ask me, what was my own philosophy? What was my driving force? My interest was to change the society from education. And that is why those who work with me knew the effort we put across in terms of elevating Nigeria, in terms of education. Because no matter what you do, without education, society will find it difficult to change. That is my own personal philosophy. Doesn't mean that that's the best. Different leaders have their own. Why did I intervene in the Ihejirika case? From the analysis we did, because one of my special advisors then, Akachukwu, did a lot of studies on the Ihejirika because we agreed. In fact, when I was the vice president, that was when we sent him out. We went to the north, discussed with so many of the leaders, both our emirs and imams, and these teachers of the Ihejirika and some of the products. And what we found out was that, look, we need to elevate them above that level. If you keep them at that level, it will cause most problem for us. And that is why we feel we are going to elevate. And I felt that, look, some of them need to be exposed to Western education. Because as a nation, you will need the best doctors. We need neurosurgeons. We need the open-heart surgeons. We need best molecular biologists and so on. And some of them have the brains to do this. But without exposing them to Western education, you have blocked so many of your people behind. And of course, that's also guided my opening NDA for the ladies, all because of my belief in education. I just feel that a lady that decides to take military career, to be in the army, what must you be limited to major? Because there was a day I went to decorate some promoted generals, and there is only one lady from the Navy who was able to wear 2 stars. And I started asking, why is it so difficult for ladies to wear 2 stars? It's almost impossible for a lady without passing through NDA to wear 2 stars. That lady entered the Navy as an architect. But even if you manage to get to that level, you can never be a chief of naval staff. You can never be a chief of army staff. You can never be a chief of air staff, not to talk about a chief of defense staff. For you to be, based on our tradition in Nigeria, you must pass through NDA. So I said, why must we lock our women? Some of them love brilliant military career, but they cannot rise to the peak. Why can't, if a woman is competent to be a chief of army staff, why can't she be? And I find out that the rest of the world, in a number of countries, the women are 2-star generals and above. And some of the best pilots in Israel are women. Some of the best jet pilots fighting their wars are young girls. And that's why I opened. But the key thing was my interest in education. I believe if I ask some of my ministers that are here how many new universities we even established, they may give us different figures. I say, and how many new universities we established?
17, sir.
Are you sure? Yes. Yeah? 13? Okay. So you can see that even among my ministers, don't know the number of new universities we established. And that gives you, it gives me out in a way my passion for education. We established 12 conventional universities. 12 conventional universities, universities that will have all the faculties that they have manpower and resources. Then that is 12. We established one maritime university in Delta State. That makes it 13. We established one medical university in Benue State. That makes it 14. And of course, we established police university in Kano. So you see that even among my ministers, they may not know. And I felt that, look, if we must change Nigeria, we must be competent scientifically and technologically because technology is ruling the world. And I came up with the Presidential Special Scholarship for Innovation and Development, though my parliamentarian Dino and others killed that program. And I felt that, look, we can't. We have a nuclear program in Nigeria. We have satellite programs in Nigeria. These are not for everybody. These are for among our special brains, and we must send them to the best universities in the world. And we came up with that PRESID. And we said that PRESID has no quota. Even if one woman has 4 children and 4 of them qualify, 4 of them will go, because it is just to help the country advance. Even if one woman has 6 and all her 6 children qualify, they go. And incidentally, myself and my vice president then were so unlucky. I think we did about 2 or 3 sets. Nobody from my state, nobody from Kaduna State benefited. So even when people like Senator Dino Melai wanted to crucify the executive secretary or NUC, he said that, look, the president, and that was the program. I thought about it, and I called my ministers. We must get this thing done. It was not brought from Minister of Education because of my vision. I feel that we must select the top brains in this world, first class among the first class in the STEM areas that can take this country to the moon. If other countries are trying to go to the moon, why can't we? We know what countries that were at the same level of development with us are doing. Go to India, go to Brazil, aircraft. If we continue this way, we can't. So we must take a deliberate policy. So my drive, my philosophy was to use education to change the society, to change Nigeria. Economic development or whatever development, my thinking, my philosophy was through the educational program. That's why when ASU had that longest strike during my tenure, I felt it was political. Because I did everything to encourage education. And even to make sure that that strike don't go on for long. We spent one full night, maybe some of the ministers may be here. There is no president that will sit with a labor union, with his vice president, with his attorney general, with his finance minister. We did not limit it to Minister of Labor or Minister of Education because of ASU, but all of us, so that they will know that any decision taken there will be implemented. Even with that, ASU refused to call off their strike. So that was my commitment to education. So I believe that more people will write more books. I don't intend to discuss the book. I don't agree with him in some of the areas he put across, but that is the key thing about looking at a leader. It's just like when we were undergraduates, I remember I was discussing with one of my friends who was in the humanities side, and we were talking about the poets and the literary critics. And he was trying to explain to me that there's one late Gabriel Okara, who was a poet, said that sometimes when they write the poems and the critics write about their work, that sometimes they don't agree with them because they see things differently, and the critics may see things differently. So you may do a critic of somebody's poem, but the poet is like somebody who is possessed and saw something differently. So it's leadership. Sometimes something may happen. A president or a governor may sack a person. Sometimes what society thinks that is the reason for that is very different. He mentioned about my removing my chief of army staff, General Ihejirika, and he said that because there was so much pressure on me from the north, it was not pressure. If somebody is doing what is right, even if you want to hit my head and split my head, I will not. You know what happened to Aruma Ote? Aruma Ote was not even a minister. Dino would know because then you were in the House of Rep, I think so. Huh? Yes. The House of Rep committee fell for one reason or the other. And when I listened to the whole thing, I said that this is a lady that made first class in computer in Nsukka. Brilliant lady. And she's not somebody I would say is corrupt. And I said no. It was tense. My close political people said, look, you have to sacrifice her so that you don't have problems with the House of Rep. that sometimes presidents, you have to, as the leader, sacrifice. I said, I'm not sacrificing any Nigerian. I will sacrifice myself. I stood my ground until the whole thing ended. Of course, later he went back to World Bank, and yes, if I have messed her up, because the issues were corruption issues. So if you have caved in because I want to be good, I want to sacrifice somebody to have a good name in the House of Rep, that lady would have been finished. Because immediately you are tagged as a corrupt person, the whole world, nobody wants to touch you with a long spoon. That is the problem myself and some members of my cabinet are still suffering till today. At the beginning of the administration, when we were all tagged corrupt people, just like the book Ruben Batty quoted. There's another one, they said that where stealing is not corruption. You know the authors of those ones. So to me, I have to thank God that today people like you even gather here to celebrate me. Because it is God. Otherwise, I could have been completely buried. Those are the challenges leaders face. And I believe that maybe with time, as you do more research, you may change some of your views about some of those things. And I also note very well, I wanted to make some comment, but I didn't want to. The section you said that, oh, yes, I did well, but there are certain expectations that I did not meet. Or maybe I'll keep it for another day so that I don't keep people for too long. I thank all of you.
All right, that was His Excellency, former President Goodluck Jonathan, GCFR, giving his response.